Okay, good evening, everyone. We are from Group 9, Company Law, and we are going to broad our topic about winding up voluntary. And we are consist of 8 people. And okay, next, and here is our name. The first topic will be delivered by Izdihar. Izdihar?
Okay, thanks. Okay, Ulfa. I will explain about introduction. The first, a process in which the existence of a company is brought to the end. And the second, the assets of are collected and realized. And third, the proceeds collected are used to discharge the company debts and liabilities, and the remaining balance, if any, will be distributed amongst the contributors. Next, and then I will explain about methods of winding up. Voluntary winding up is divided into two categories. The first, members voluntary winding up is the liquidation of a solvent company, where the directors have formed an opinion that the company will be able to pay in debts in full within the period of 12 months after the commencement of winding up as stated under Section 257 A 1968. And the second, creditors voluntary winding up is a liquidation of an insolvent company where the directors make a declaration stating that the company cannot, by reason of its debts and liabilities, continue its business. A meeting between the company and its creditors must be summoned within 1 month from the date of the declaration. Okay, the next will be explained by the other person.
Okay, next ground from winding up. Section 218 provide a list of circumstances where a company may be wound up by the High Court. 1.A special resolution. 1.B default in filling statutory report. 1.C failure to common business. 1.D reduction of member below 2. 1.E inability to pay debits. 1.F director acted in their own interest. 1.G inspection. 1.H provide in MOA or AOA. 1.E just an equitable finish. Next.
Okay, this is the round process of voluntary winding up. The first is special resolution under section 218 1.8. A company may be passing a special resolution resolve that it be wound up by the court. A winding up order may be granted, and the solvency of the company has no relevance. Must satisfy requirement under section 100.52 of CA. And then the second is default in filling statutory report. This must be presented by the minister or contributory after expiration of 14 days of the last date on which the statutory meeting ought to have been held. The third is failure to commence business under section 218 1.c. A company may be wound up by the court if it doesn't commence business within a year from its incorporation or suspends its business for a whole year. And then the fourth is reduction of members below 2. Under section 14.1, an incorporated company must be formed by 2 or more persons. It doesn't apply to a company where the whole of the issued share held by the holding company. Okay, next. The fifth is the inability to pay debt. This not include unliquidated damages or a sum of money not capable of being ascertained. And the sixth one is directors acted in their own interest. Directors acted in the affairs of the company in their own interest, and they are having manner which appears to be unfair or unjust. And this might lead to two limbs. First, where the directors of a company have acted in the affairs And the second, it will be appears to be unfair or unjust to other members. And the seven is inspection under Part 9, Section 218, 1.g. The company cannot pay its debt and should be wound up. It's in the interest of the public or of the shareholders or of the creditors that the company should be wound up. And then the last two, the dissolution under MOA or AOA, if any provision provided thereof. And the last but not least, just and equitable, the failure of the corporate substratum, where business is carried on in a fraudulent manner, and members can no longer continue to work in association, and members have justifiably lost confidence in management. Okay, the next part will be delivered by my friend.
Okay, next is failure of the corporate or the whole business which a company was incorporated to carry on has become impossible. It may be within section 218, 1A, 1I, just and equitable that the company shall be one up. There must be more than a more discontinue of the business activities of the company, and even length discontinue will not suffice. On other words, there must be final and conclusive abandonment of the business. In assessing whether the substratum is gone or the business as contemplated is impossible to carry on, the court may construe the object as stated in the memorandum to ascertain it. Regerman det Coffee Co. 1882 20 CHD 169. The object of the company were specific in that it was to make coffee from dates using a German patent. The patent was never granted and coffee was made with a Swedish patent. The company was solvent and to continue. However, the shareholder petition for a winding up on the ground that its object had failed. Held the substratum had failed as it was impossible to carry out the object for which the company was formed. Thank you. And next.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the second is I will explain about business is carried on in fraudulent manner. Where the business of a company is being carried on in fraudulent manner, a petition may be presented to wind up the company. As the cause, the Thomas Edward Bridgesmith and Son Ltd. 1897 1 CH 45. A firm, John Bridgesmith and Son was not piano maker. Some employees of the firm set up a company called Thomas Edward Bridgesmith and Son Ltd. to manufacture pianos, which the court found were the best of the products of the firm. John Bridgesmith obtained the injunction against using the brand Smith. It was held by Pope Philip was from the defrauding John Bridgesmith. The shareholders who had been misled into believing that the company had the right to use the name and goodwill of the Bridgesmith were entitled to refuse to continue in a business which was a fraud. In view of the fraud that had been committed and to protect the interests of the incumbent shareholder, the company was one up.
The third is members can no longer continue to work in association. Where members can no longer continue to work in association, the winding up under the just and equitable ground can be applied in circumstances where the relationship between members of a company has broken down irretrievably. What is sometimes known in this case of Renege Tobacco Co. Ltd., a company was set up by two persons, Redman and Weinberg, to carry on the business of tobacco manufacture. They were the only shareholders holding equal voting rights and the only directors of the company. Subsequently, they fell out and couldn't get along with each other to the secretary. Redman has sued Weinberg in separate action alleging fraud. Lord Curzon had the MR held that had this been a partnership, it would have been possible to wind it up on the grounds that it was to place confidence in each other. Looking at the suite filled by Rodman, the two profit order next we will describe it. Other situation.
Okay, number 4, members justifiably lost in confidence in management. It may be minority members lost confidence in the management. The loss of the confidence is to rest on a lack of probity in the conduct of the affairs of a company. We can see on the case Locke and Anor against John Blackwood Ltd. He failed to hold general meetings and make available the company's account to the members. These omissions were to suppress information about the company's shares at an undervalued. According to the court, this is an operation against the minority members, and thus he has to standing to petition to win up the company. Next slide, I will pass to Pevitran.
Thank you, Nizam. Now we are moving on to the final segment of this presentation today, which will be focusing on the breakdown of a quasi-partnership. So before moving on to the main content, we should know that what is a quasi-partner or a quasi-partnership. A quasi-partnership is related to a quasi-partner who is actually is not a partner but liable for debts of the partnership as a consequences of holding out. In example, causing other people to believe that he is a partner. In this case of Ibrahimi and Westbound Galleries Limited ORS, where there is a breakdown of a quasi-partnership, which the court can order the winding up of a company where there is a breakdown in the relationship of mutual trust and confidence, which was the foundation of an understanding by which the operations of the company were to be governed. In addition, in the case of Ibrahimi and Westbound Galleries Limited and ORS, Mr. Ibrahimi and Mr. Nazar were the partners. So they decided to incorporate as the business was highly successful, buying and selling expensive rugs. Mr. Ibrahimi and Mr. Nazar were the sole shareholders in the company and took a director's salary rather than dividends for tax reasons. A few years later, when Mr. Nazar's son came of age, he was appointed to the board of directors and Mr. Ibrahimi and Mr. Nazar both transferred shares to him. Mr. Nazar and son then called a company meeting in which they passed an ordinary resolution to have Mr. Ibrahimi removed as a director. Mr. Ibrahimi, clearly unhappy at this point, which applied remedy to have the company wound up. The House of Lords stated that as a company is a separate legal person, the court would not normally entertain such an application. However, they believed that as the company was so similar in its operation as it was when it was a partnership, they created what is now known as a quasi-partnership. So the company was wound up and Mr. Ibrahimi received his capital interest. That's all from us. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, I think we are done with our presentations about winding up voluntary. And I think we are done. And thank you for your attention. Good evening.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Guys.
Hope it's working out, guys.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank
Bye.
you, guys. Bye bye.